it's bad. Ripped apart. Oh, so upsetting. Like, hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This week I'm going to be talking about the differences between how we treat moms v how we treat dads. So again, this is going to be a lot of kind of like hetero relationships basically. I think it's really interesting to look at how we treat them and the differences between them. Sorry, this is so bright because the sun, but that's what we're working with. I'm going to give some examples of just the differences and then what we can do about it and why it's bad and needs to stop. So let's get into it. Basically, the general gist of this video is that there are double standards between moms and dads, and we put this unfair expectation on mothers to be perfect, and we expect very little of dads. Dads bring their daughters to school, or they plait their hair, or they hold their babies, and we're like, oh my god, amazing. Women do all this stuff and don't get any praise, and it's like, grand, we don't necessarily, well, not that I'm a mother, but it's like, women don't necessarily want the praise, but it's like, well, don't praise the husband for doing like the bare minimum and the exact same thing. And it's a really big issue, and obviously again, I'm not a parent, but I've seen so much stuff and it's just insane. So it's something we all need to be super aware of. And I think it stems from a lot of it is just representation. Like, we watch movies and dads are portrayed as like deadbeat dads who are just pathetic, and it's like funny and it's laughable, whereas if like a woman would never be portrayed that way because we're just expected to be able to do it all. Like, she would be torn apart if we represented women that way. It just kind of continues the cycle because it's like, well, boys are growing up seeing dads represented as like these horrific creatures, and then they're obviously then like, oh well, I don't need to obviously aspire to be anything, whereas women, it's almost assumed that you have to be maternal and like that's what you're going to be for your life. And it's like watching these shows where they're balancing 10 billion kids and it's like, oh god, we think we must do that, and it's just like insane. And I'll give some examples through the video of like times where we have decimated women for messing up basically. And like one of them, the famous ones, is when Britney Spears dropped her baby, and I was just watching the video there yesterday, and I was just like, I felt so bad for her. Like, she was like covered with paparazzi, they were everywhere. She like slipped on her jeans, I think is what actually happened, nearly dropped the baby, and she was torn apart. And there's so many examples of that with celebrities, with just being absolutely ripped apart for things that could happen to anyone, and it's just horrific. So that's just like one example, and we'll have more as we go through. So let's get into just some examples and some topics of discussion that I think are really interesting when talking about this. So we go around and we see men holding their baby, and I know I'm guilty of it. We say like, oh my god, that's so cute, and like, it is, but it shouldn't be. Like, they're just holding their baby. And one thing I saw about this was that, like, because we don't often see men holding babies, of course we think it's cute. Like the example the person gave was like, well, if you see a gorilla holding a kitten, like, that's gonna be, oh my god, so cute, because we never really see it. Whereas if we saw a gorilla holding a kitten all the time, it wouldn't be that cute. So it's like, it's kind of like that. It's like we don't often see men holding babies for, I don't know, for whatever reason. When we do, it's like, oh my god, so cute. Whereas like we always see women depicted holding babies, so it's not as cute. We need to just stop doing that. Stop being like, oh my god, so cute. Like, that's just the bare minimum of holding your baby. And again, a lot of the things that I mentioned throughout this are just so insulting to men. Like, it's like, that is the bare minimum. It's like, what, like, do you expect men to just be complete and utter failures? Like, they can hold their baby, there's no need to be like, oh my god. Again, it's just so insulting to men. Another one is like, as I mentioned, like dads doing their daughter's hair. Again, that's amazing, but it's like, women do their daughter's hair every single day. There's no video recordings of it, there's no going viral on Facebook. Like, they're just doing their mommy duties. And again, it's just like, moms, again, don't necessarily want praise for that, but like, don't be like, oh my god, like bowing down at the dad for doing something that moms do every single day and get absolutely no credit for. Like, it's just insane. Another really interesting issue is like being asked how you balance it all. Like, this is kind of a famous one now, and people are really starting to be like, oh my god, stop asking me that. Like, celebrities are asked that, like anybody doing it, like a podcast or interview is asked, well, how do you balance it all? And it's like, men are never asked this. And a really good example is when Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck were still together. They were doing like like a movie kind of press junket thingy, whatever. And they came home later that day, and Jen, as if I know her, Jennifer said that she was asked at every single interview, how do you balance, being a mom and doing all these movies? And she asked Ben, and he had never once been asked that the entire day, and he'd never been asked that once in his entire life. She was just like, well, why, like, we're co-parents, and why am I only being asked this? A lot of women are being like, to be honest, I don't want to answer that question. You would never ask a man that, so don't ask me that. It's so silly. Men are also balancing working and being parents just as much as women, whereas they're never asked. Either we ask both of them, or we ask neither. Another one is asking people if and when they want kids, and a lot of times you'll notice men are asked if they want kids, and women are asked when they want kids, or when they're having kids. And it's like, well, they may not want, and again, it's like men might want kids just as much as women do. There's no necessarily thing that like women like are hardwired to want kids. No, like I think it's actually quite equal. So again, just treat them the same. If you're gonna ask people when they're having kids, which you probably shouldn't, you know, maybe ask them both when they're having kids, or ask them both if they want kids at all. Another interesting one is the issue of the biological clock. So really interestingly, the biological clock started being discussed in the kind of the 1980s or the 1960s, I believe, when birth control was introduced and when women started working. So basically it was introduced as a way to try and curb that, try and curb women delaying having kids so that they could work, so that like to keep them out of the workforce. So it actually wasn't even a thing or discussed until then. But also, there's a lot more research now on the fact that men might also have a biological clock. So there's been research done with like IVF and stuff that like it was less successful the older the father was. So there needs to be more research done. There's definitely a thing that men have a biological clock as well, and that needs to be discussed more, I think. It's just a shitty thing to say to women like, oh, your biological clock is ticking. Like, no, if she wants kids, she wants kids. If she doesn't, she doesn't. You know, like just stop pressuring women. But if you're going to talk about both of them, talk about the man's one too. Another really interesting thing is that, again, there's been so many reports of women getting pay cuts once they have kids in the workforce, and men getting pay rises when they have kids in the workforce, because it's seen that they're the providers and they need more money to provide for their kids, which again is just so upsetting. Like, why is there such a double standard? Like, women need just as much money, if not more, for their kids than as well as the men. Like, it's just so insane. Another interesting issue is when women have kids and then go to work, they're, you know, career obsessed and they're neglecting their children, but then when they stay home, they're like mommy brain, mommy obsessed, like bad feminist, like not going to work. And how do we treat men? The exact same. We, you know, if they stay at home, we're like, oh, you're such a good dad, you're the best. And if they go to work, we're like, you are providing for your family, you are amazing, this is great. Like, why is there such discrepancy? Like, it's just so insane. Like, is someone not like, wait, why do we treat all these people so differently? The issue of maternity leave v paternity leave, the fact that this is just such an obvious one is insane. Like, it takes two usually to make a kid. Why is there just one in a lot of countries where it's just maternity leave? The fact that it's taken so long for paternity leave to be introduced is just so telling of how we view fathers in society and their role and their importance. Like, they are super important for the development of a child and to be a part of their child's life. So of course we would need paternity leave, but it's taken so long to come in. It's still not in so many countries, or if it is, it's super small. Like, that is just one of the biggest examples of how we view, you know, like motherhood as opposed to fatherhood. Like, both are equally as important, like, and they need to be treated as such. And like, not even just so that, like, you know, fathers can spend time with their kids, but that like women have more options. Like, I've probably talked about this so many times, and it's everyone talks about it, but like having both paternity leave and maternity leave and just parental leave is so important to give freedom to your partners and just to spend time with your kids, and it's just overall goodness. Another thing that I want to talk about is the issue of like deadbeat dads. Like, it's seen as like this like comical thing, like, oh yeah, I have a deadbeat dad. But like, you would never ever say you have a deadbeat mom. I mean, first of all, mom probably just wouldn't leave, but also they would never ever be portrayed in that way. Like, women don't really have the luxury of leaving their kids because they're seen as the ones you have to take care of, and if they did, they would be torn apart. Whereas, you know, being a deadbeat dad is just like, oh, funny, comical. Whereas if that was the mom, it would be like, she is the worst human ever existing. Another one we talk about a lot is like men babysitting their children. Like, that's said so much, and it's like, no, they're not babysitting their children, they're just minding their own children. Like, you would never ever say that a woman is babysitting her children. She's being a mom and she's minding her children. Like, it's so hilarious. And that's kind of a recent one that I've seen, but it seems to be everywhere. It's so funny. Another one is when like women say like, oh, like, I'm so lucky to have such a supportive husband and he's such a good dad, and like, that's totally fair thing to say, and I'm sure he is very supportive, and I'm sure you are very lucky. But it's like, again, I can't imagine many men saying like, oh yeah, my wife is so supportive. Like, supportive of what? Like, no, like, she's doing what you all think she's supposed to do, and he's doing exactly what he should be doing. Yet we would never say like, I'm so lucky to have such a good wife and she's such a good mom. Like, it's expected that she is gonna be good and gonna have to do that. Whereas all we ever hear is like, oh, he's so supportive, like, I'm so lucky. Like, no. Another one is the issue of like single parents. Like, oh, this is a horrific one. Like, single moms are treated as if they are just like the worst humans in the whole entire world. They're treated like they're failures for making the man leave. Like, they can't juggle it all. Like, who would be able to juggle it all? Like, they're punished. Whereas again, then single dads are just like, oh my god, you are a hero, you are so good, you're minding all your children on your own, how do you do it? And like, it's seen as like attractive, like it's seen as like, oh my god, he must be a really good, like really, if he's a good dad then he's a good partner. And there's no question of like, oh, did he turn the mother away, or like what happened there. Like it's just assumed that because he has the kids and he's single dad, that he's amazing. Whereas if it's a single woman, she's just like treated horribly, and that she's just like used up and she's no good, and she's, oh, it's just makes me so sad. And one last thing I wanted to talk about as well was actually Chrissy Teigen and John Legend. This was a really interesting one. So they had their first baby, and like I think it was like 10 days after she was born, they both went out for dinner. So it was assumed that the baby was like at home, like obviously with like a babysitter or a childminder or whatever. And Chrissy Teigen got absolutely slaughtered for leaving her baby like and going for dinner 10 days after she was born. And like not one person said anything about John Legend, the father, who was also out for dinner and also left his kid at home. And she got absolutely slaughtered for it. It was everywhere. He called it out. He was just like, not one person said anything to me about it. Like, if you're gonna shame one of us, shame both of us. Like we can share it. And that's just a prime example of the differences and the way we treat mums and dads. He's also been really good as well in trying to campaign to get baby changing stations in men's bathrooms, which is such a huge issue. And it's still like very much like there's just baby changing stations in women's bathrooms, like if you're in a shopping centre or a restaurant or whatever. And this is obviously such a huge issue because it means that women are more likely going to have to be the ones who have to change the nappy because there's only the changing stations for them. And again, just it's like, what does that say about our attitudes towards fathers, so they don't ever change their like children's nappies? Like of course they do. So John Legend is actually like super like, yay, let's campaign for that, and I think it's like amazing, so he should do that. And that's like, we should all be having baby change stations in men's bathrooms everywhere. It's just insane that that's still a thing. So to kind of wrap up, like, why is it a problem? What can we do? Like, it's a problem just because parenthood is tough enough without putting this unfair double standard on women to be absolutely perfect. Like, can you imagine being that stressed off your brains and then having everyone judge you if you do something wrong, don't say anything if you do something well? It's just horrific. So we need to just be easier on people. And like, we all say, oh, it takes a village to raise a baby, but then we expect like one person to do it all. Like, no, like it does take a village to raise a baby, and we need to like stop mommy shaming, and like dad shaming isn't even a thing. I've never even heard that, but like mommy shaming is such a huge thing. It's horrific for moms, but so much pressure on them, but it's also just so insulting to men. Like, men are also capable of rearing children and being great dads, and we need to expect more of them, and expect less of women. Like women can't do it all. We need to expect men to step up and expect that women are going to make mistakes and not be perfect, and not penalise them and not punish them and slaughter them for not being perfect. I think just like the issue of reversibility here is just so important as ever. Just ask yourself, you know, would you treat a man this way? Would you treat a woman this way for doing the exact same thing? Would you praise a woman for doing that thing that you're praising a man for now? Like, probably not. Like, just always ask yourself, if it was flipped around, would you be acting the same way? And if the answer is no, then you need to change how you're acting, how you're treating people. It's just so important. And again, I think the media has a huge part to play here. You know, movies need to stop portraying dads as just these pathetic, like, ooh, whimsical creatures who don't know how to do anything, and portraying women as like doing it all, like going to work, like managing the baby, being perfect, and setting these unattainable high standards for how we're meant to act in the world, and setting like outrageously low standards for how fathers are meant to act in this world. I think media has such a huge role to play. And again, just in reporting, like if a celebrity messes up, like don't slaughter her. And then, you know, if a celebrity dad does something like super basic, like don't be like, oh my god, he's amazing. You know, like we need to just, yeah, treat women and men and fathers and mothers fairly. So I hope I pointed out just some of the double standards in this video, and just like why it's like so dangerous and so bad, and why it needs to stop. And we need to just be, again, just sound and nicer to each other. So thank you for watching this week's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel, or like the video, or leave a comment below. I would love to hear people's thoughts on this or personal experiences. Obviously I'm not a parent myself, and I'll see you all in next week's video. Thank you so much. Bye.